Calling City Council meeting to order.
Roll call for the City Council meeting of Wednesday, March 1st, 2023 at 9 a.m. Mr. Nelson, Ms. Faulkner, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon. Mr. Brzezinski is absent.
I stand for silent meditation and pledge. Firefighter? No, did you see his name? Mike Smith.
Moment of silence, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you, first of all, grateful and thankful that you allowed us to assemble in this chambers today. We ask that you, by the power of your Spirit, help us make good and prudent decisions on the behalf of the city and the city residents. We ask for you to remember those who are mourning. The city mourns firefighter Smith, and we ask that you keep him and his family in your prayers, O Lord. Remember all those who are downtrodden and those who are in need. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're accepting a motion to accept the minutes from the February 15th, 2023 City Council meeting and bills for payment on March 3rd, 2023 and March 10th. Ms. Faulkner, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Nelson. Anyone here to speak on a repository sale? Anyone here for a repository sale? Anybody here for a repository sale? Continue with public comments.
I'd like to give a heads up before public comments. We do have a hearing at 9:30, so public comments will go up until that hearing. At the end of the hearing, we will resume public comments. The hearing is in regards to the short-term rental zoning. It's a zoning hearing. So if you have comments as public comments for that, I would suggest using the time of the hearing to offer those comments. Or that also the other aspect of the hearing is a liquor license transfer. So those are the two things that would be more appropriate to wait to offer public comments. Otherwise, anyone that would like to make public comments, please move forward.
Good morning, City Council. I'm here once again. My name is Deacon Barry Clark. My address is 2035 East 19th Street, and I'm here once again about my street. I thank you once again for preparing the street, but every year in April, I have a backup in my basement, which costs me $129. But I come to find out yesterday that it's not my fault, it's the city's fault. So they had to go down and clear it out, and I was told that I would be reimbursed. But I don't get reimbursed for last year when this exact same thing happened. If you have any money left for that ARP money, I think you should put it into the infrastructure that's tearing up our city. We had an incident at 10th and State Street where the infrastructure needed to be repaired. Our residents also need repair for deteriorating sewer system. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.
Good morning, Council President, members of City Council. My name is Father Jerry Perscaro, 921 East Avenue. I'm here today as the coordinator of the East Avenue Hess Avenue Neighborhood Watch. Our watch area consists of 46 city blocks of residential and commercial properties. The single most destructive force leading to the continual decline and deterioration of city neighborhoods has been the conversion of single-family dwellings into multiple apartments. The city of Erie now has a majority of renters, landlords, and rental properties. Code enforcement and the zoning department are responsible for allowing single-family dwellings to be converted into multiple apartments. Oftentimes, there's no kitchen, no shower or bath or bathroom in each rental unit. So guess what happens? The standard is lowered, the landlords benefit, the renters suffer, and inner city neighborhoods deteriorate. The second most destructive force leading to the decline of city neighborhoods is you've got a hodgepodge of developments taking place in residential neighborhoods where the zoning ordinance has been disregarded. Development takes place where it does not belong. The city needs to better regulate the use of vacant properties, enforcing the zoning ordinance. I'm asking the mayor, the mayor's administration, members of city council to get serious about raising the housing standards and commercial standards in the city of Erie's inner city neighborhoods. And you can do this by doing the following. Place greater restrictions on the conversion of all remaining single-family dwellings from being converted into multiple apartment units. We are maxed out with rental units. We want homeowners who stay and have investment in the neighborhood. Require a zoning certificate be applied for and obtained whenever residential property and/or a residential building containing 5 or less dwelling units is transferred or sold in the city of Erie. Require a building inspection every time rental property is sold or transferred from one owner to another owner. Require a certificate of occupancy declaring the number of people who will be living in each rental unit to ensure safety, reasonable living accommodations, and compliance with fire code and fire escape regulations. Require a zoning certificate be applied for and obtained whenever commercial land and/or a commercial building or buildings is transferred or sold to be certain their use is in compliance with the current zoning ordinance. Require in the zoning certificate a declared use for the land and the building by the seller and the buyer under oath and the penalties of perjury for non-compliance. Require a certificate of occupancy declaring the maximum number of people permitted within a commercial property at any one time. Establish a reasonable fee system for applying for each of these certificates and deny issuing certificates when regulations and standards are not met. Institute a no-nonsense approach to code enforcement from the top down with the hiring of an additional 6 new code enforcement officers for a total complement of 12 covering the city and its 12 regional neighborhood areas, 6 for the east side, 6 for the west side. Institute a no-nonsense approach to enforcing zoning ordinances and the issuance of zoning certificates from the top down. Less exceptions, more accountability. When commercial property or land is vacant, ensure current zoning regulations take effect and past zoning regulations are declared expired. Stop the practice of allowing residential and commercial land and building owners from being delinquent on property taxes up to 3 years before placing the property up for judicial sale. Place the property up for judicial sale after 1 year delinquency and several months of delinquent fees and penalties so people stop gaming the system. Increase penalties and fees for past due taxes each month of delinquency with compounding interest and raised high enough to discourage extended delinquencies. After 6 months, the property should be put up for judicial sale with a tax lien. Composition of a zoning hearing board that is less permissive and more restrictive of how land and buildings are used, with full consideration of how a proposal by a landowner and/or building owner could negatively impact the health, the safety, the morals, and the welfare of neighborhood residents of a particular neighborhood, where any variance, non-conforming use, special exceptions are granted. Finally, make variances, special exceptions, non-conforming use to code enforcement and zoning ordinances rare rather than common occurrences. I have kindly printed up my comments today for each member of council, the mayor's administration as well. Thank you, council.
Thanks.
John Schubert. I on one of the neighborhood watches. And one of the things I wanted to mention is the code inspection
Mr.
right
Schubert,
now
could you give your address, please?
really lacking. We need more code inspectors, and we need to be able to follow through on what their problems are.
Get them at the end.
It kind of reminds me, years ago, when I came up here, I was 4 years old, and I lived on 21st and Wayne. And there used to be an officer that, he's retired now and passed away, but I ran into him a few years ago, and he said, John, he said, would you walk those streets anymore on 21st Street? I says, I would really have a lot of doubt. Things have changed. In 50-some years that, I'm going to say, we had approximately 220-some policemen. Now, the city is worse. And I've been here, and I've been pretty much an East Sider all my life. And I can tell you this, that it's not any better. I know a lot of people are saying we can't afford them, what have you, and that, but quite frankly, we can't afford not to have them. And the same thing with the code inspection. The same code inspection today, I had rental properties probably for 40 years. Never did I worry about having them come over to inspect. My suggestion is, as I talked to some code inspectors, they had indicated they're not allowed to go into the backyards. Well, what's wrong with using drones where they can fly up, look, and see what's going on? If you look in your paper each week, more and more properties in this city are being bought up and rented out, and quite frankly, a number of them, I'm going to say the vast majority of them are interested in strictly the rent and not keeping the properties up. So my suggestion is that when you have a tenant and he moves out, I don't care if it's 10, 12 times a year, you should have that property inspected each and every time before a new tenant goes in there. And this having two setups, you have a code inspection and you have this other outfit that we pay $40, you know, for having them come in and inspect the property. This should really be under the city's control. It really isn't. I've gone through many inspections on there, never had a problem in that, but like I said, the way it's set up now, the city should be doing the total going the front and the rear of the properties and that. And like I said, your situation with the properties and that, it's getting worse. It's like I said, from my age, and I'm mostly an East Sider and that, I can tell you it's really, if you got in the car and just drove back and forth on the streets and looked, it's a mess. It really is. So this is something that should be addressed in that. My final word is, Mel, sorry about your loss.
Can we have
John,
your address?
John, sir, we missed your address in the beginning. Would you state that for the record?
2413 East Avenue.
Thank you.
Been there 50-some years now.
Awesome.
Good morning. I'm Kathy Weiser, 2704 Green Garden Boulevard. And I'm just here to find out where we're at with the Green Garden bike path. We met 2 weeks ago. We were able to come here and have a discussion, and we haven't had any updates. We haven't had any information. We are having a neighborhood meeting tonight at the Saga Club, and we did ask for city representation. I have not heard back from anyone saying whether they would be there or not. I know that David Foster did leave now, and that concerns us a little bit. who's going to take the lead on this? Who do we correspond with? Can City Council take the lead on this and follow up on it? Give us an opportunity to sit down at the table and discuss a compromise? We are inching ever closer to the spring construction season, which is when this project was to begin, and it's making us nervous that nothing has progressed.
What time is that meeting tonight?
6:30.
Sorry, we're not able to respond. We just
Okay.
we
Oh,
just
all
take
right.
comments.
Okay.
So-
All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name's Mike Runsell. I'm a local landlord. I just had a couple things I wanted to discuss with City Council. I was wondering if I could give you guys a small packet.
Yeah, and you'll have to give your address for the record as well.
I would like to withhold my address, but I left my phone number on the form.
Put your address on the official record. Your address has to be recorded.
Okay. I grew up in Erie. I went to a multiracial church as a child. My mom ended up passing away. I bought her 2-unit rental property. I put people in there, rented it out. They found out from the neighbors that I go to a multiracial church for over 30 years. I bought 5 rental properties inside the city of Erie. Out of the 5 rental properties, I put new windows in 4 of them. I put all new furnaces in them. I put new carpeting in all of them. I put new hot water tanks in them. I take good care of them. I know what it's like to grow up in poverty. I worked my way out of poverty working 60 hours a week. I'm not rich. I'm middle class. I do good with the rental properties. I was earning about, at the time, like $20,000 a year. Now I earn like 30. Plus I work a full-time job. The people I rented to, they were committing crimes. They vandalized my property. They said, "Oh, we know you rent to African Americans, that you go to a multiracial church. We're going to tell the police. We're going to vandalize your property. You're going to pay me $2,000 a month if you want to stay in business. We're going to turn you into code enforcement." I've been dealing with this. I've been here a year ago. I've been assaulted multiple times. I got a guy 15 years younger than me beating the hell out of me. And I called the police and they threatened to prosecute me. When I wanted to show them my cell phone about these messages you guys got in front of you, they wouldn't even look at them. They say, "You're a landlord, it's part of business, you can sue them." But they're allowed to vandalize my property. It's illegal. It's called criminal mischief. And I've talked to a code enforcement officer. Matter of fact, the people that have damaged my house that they want to give me a fine for, I talked to Jake Benny. He said he would talk to his supervisor. The supervisor talked to the police. The police told code enforcement not to prosecute these individuals for doing this to my property. And they pushed me around, spit on me. They videotape it when they do it to me. And it's just gotten more violent. It just started out with name calling and vandalism. Now I had bruises all over my body. I recently just stopped someone from assaulting me. I don't know how, on the second page of that packet I gave you, they said I'm some kind of magical Jesus person. That's a comment to my religion. My mom used to have potlucks at the house after church. There was a diverse group that would come over many years ago when she was alive. I just don't know how someone can do this nowadays and it's acceptable. I don't know why the police would allow people to vandalize my house. They refused, code enforcement refused to look at my cell phone with the messages. The police refused to do that. They said they can prosecute me for having like consensual fights. They come to my rental property and beat me up when I'm trying to mow the lawn. Guy's 15 years younger than me. I can't do nothing but get beat up. I try to fight back as best I can. I do as best as I can. But I got a guy, I'm 48 years old, I got a guy like 30 years old beating me up. I can't, I'm gonna have to quit this. The city says they want to give me a fine for the damage that they did. And I says, I'm cleaning it up, but I'm getting beat up when I do it. I had a maintenance guy work for me, they threatened him, he quit for me. He worked for me for 20 years. I don't understand how the city can turn their back on me and just say, oh, you can sue them. The people that are low income, they want to be like some high roller criminals, but they're just bottom level criminals. And now there's a new law county passed that I can't discriminate against people with criminal history. Half of my tenants are minorities. I had to raise their rent, some of them $85, and my cost to get stuff repaired went up 4 times, four times. Because my handyman quit for me, I had to hire a company every time I want something done. I just don't understand why this was never taken care of. And I wanted to give this packet with the packet I gave you guys and the photographs of my injuries to the chief of police. I like them. I don't know why the law enforcement says just sue these people for damaging your property. I just can't understand this. And they collect taxes. I follow all the laws.
Thank you.
I get my rental property.
Thank you for your
inspected.
comments. It's a 5-minute limit.
I was just wondering if you guys do an investigation. You could ask the police what's going on with this situation. They just turned their backs on me.
Thank you.
Ed. Pictures.
I just hope that you guys could talk to the police and just ask them what they're going to do about this and what they did about it. They wouldn't even call these people. Wouldn't even call them. I gave them the phone number. The police wouldn't even call.
Thank you. We've got time for one more public comment before the hearing begins. No other public comments? Any other public comments? Any other public comments? All right.
I could do an ordinance for first reading. Council file number 16333, official ordinance 8/2023, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $5,000 from appropriated and anticipated revenue from the CSX transportation. Sponsored by Ms. Faulkner, seconded by Mr. Troop. The council file bill number 16333, and now known as official file ordinance 8/2023, be finally passed by City Council. Ms. Faulkner, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Nelson. City Council pass official file ordinance 8/2023 by yea 6, nay 0. Ordinance number 9/2023, City Council number 16334, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Erie, the city determining to incur lease rental debt evidenced by the guaranteed revenue note and the maximum principal amount of $3,099,600 to be authorized and issued by Erie City Water Authority in connection with the construction, alteration, and improvements to the public water distribution facilities in and about this city, including but not limited to the lead service line replacement project, Phase 2, and paying related costs, fees, and expenses, specifying the realistic useful life of the project, authorizing and directing appropriate officers of the city to take certain actions and to execute certain documents, including a guarantee agreement between the city as guarantor and the Erie City Water Authority, and the Pennsylvania Infrastructure Investment Authority, approving the form, maximum guaranteed amounts, and sources of payment of the guarantee agreement, creating a sinking fund in connection with such guarantee obligations, and appointing a sinking fund depository, and providing for the repeal of all inconsistent ordinances or part of ordinances. Sponsored by Ms. Faulkner, seconded by Mr. Troop, the council file ordinance bill number 16334, and now known as official file ordinance 9/2023, be finally passed by City Council. Ms. Faulkner, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Nelson. City Council pass official file ordinance 9/2023 by yeas 6, nays 0. Want me to continue?
Yeah, we can knock out one more.
Council file number 16335, official ordinance 10/2023, an ordinance amending the City of Erie zoning ordinance to designate the Mayor Block 1501 to 1509 State Street as historic structures pursuant to Article 7 of the City of Erie zoning ordinance and to amend the zoning map to reflect such designation. Sponsored by Mr. Witherspoon, seconded by Ms. Flores, the Council File Ordinance Bill number 16335, and now known as Official File Ordinance 10/2023, be finally passed by City Council. Ms. Faulkner, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Nelson. City Council pass Official File Ordinance 10/2023 by yeas 6, nays 0.
And that brings us to 9:30 for the public hearing.
We have
Liquor licenses first.
pursuant to the provisions of PA 47 PS 4 461 and the proper legal advertising, Erie City Council will hold a public hearing today at 9:30 a.m. in City Council chambers to hear testimony to discuss the request of Attorney Mark Kozar, 610 Smithfield Street, Suite 300, Pittsburgh, for the approval of the proposed transfer of Pennsylvania Restaurant Liquor License Number R8337 from Fun Eats and Drinks, Mill Creek Plaza, Unit 250, Interchange Rows, Mill Creek Township, Erie County, Pennsylvania, to Tops Market LLC for restaurant facilities within the City of Erie to be located at 1702 East 38th Street, City of Erie, Erie County, Pennsylvania, with the understanding that the liquor license will be transferred to only that location. To hear testimony, we need to swear in anybody.
Is anyone else offering testimony on this one? Okay.
I do. Mark Kozar, M-A-R-K, K-O-Z-A-R. I am Mark Kozar. I'm with the law firm of Flaherty & O'Hara. I always like to plug our law firm whenever I get before a group like this. Our sole area of practice is liquor licensing and liquor law with licenses with the offices in Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, and Philadelphia. I'm here today on behalf of Tops Markets. With me today is Chris Watson from Tops. We're here to request that the City of Erie pass a resolution permitting the intermunicipal transfer of a liquor license from outside the city to within it, pursuant to the revised Liquor Code, Title 47, Section 461B3, for use by Tops at their location at 1702 East 38th Street. As you all probably know, since 2001, liquor licenses can be moved anywhere within a county so long as the municipality it's being moved to issues a resolution permitting that transfer. In order for you to make your decision on our request, let me just give you a little bit of background on Tops Market. The first Tops Market opened in 1962 in Niagara Falls. Since that time, Tops has grown to 149 supermarkets in New York, Pennsylvania, and Vermont. In 2001, Tops Market merged with Price Chopper, with both now being subsidiaries of Golub Corporation. They've more than doubled their number of stores. As you know, Tops has a store here in downtown Erie. They are planning a remodel, and as a matter of fact, I think that remodel is ongoing right now. Part of that remodel will be putting in a seating area for 32 people, and they plan on, part of their business plan is to sell beer to go and wine to go, and to a lesser extent, beer for consumption on premises. First, this Tops Market qualifies for a restaurant liquor license in that it's got 400 square feet or more, seating for 30, and food for 30, which are the minimum requirements under the liquor code for a restaurant liquor license. Beer on the premise will be located in coolers on the licensed premises and displayed on shelves near that cooler. Tops would prefer not to sell beer for consumption on premises. It's an argument that we waged with the PLCB for the better part of 2 or 3 years. We represent the majority of grocery stores and convenience stores in the state of Pennsylvania, and we basically said, you know, our clients would prefer not to sell beer for on-premise consumption. It actually went to the state Supreme Court, who said, no, you know what, if you're going to sell it to go, you have to at least offer it for on-premise consumption. On-premise consumption at grocery stores and convenience stores is very limited. You know, our reports from our clients over the last 15, 18 years is that it rarely happens. You know, it's not a place where people come to hang out and drink beer. You know, there's no video games or pool tables or live music. You know, it's a grocery store. You know, your grandmother might be walking down the aisle as you're sitting there drinking a beer. The restaurant seating area in this particular store is going to be in the middle of the store. All food and service to eat and to go prepared foods will be available in the cafe area. The hours of alcohol sales will be 7 a.m. to midnight, which in essence corresponds with the store hours. The store opens at 6, but the liquor code says you can't sell any type of alcohol until 7 a.m. Sundays, the alcohol sale hours would start at 9 a.m. and go to midnight. There'll be a dedicated store manager for the liquor service area. The person will receive the responsible alcohol management training for owners and operators. It's a program that was produced by the PLCB in conjunction with the Bureau of Liquor Control Enforcement. Teaches people how to identify fake IDs, how to identify people who are visibly intoxicated, how to identify pass-off situations where you have someone who's 21 trying to buy for someone who is not 21. All cafe associates will receive ramp server training in addition to TOPS internal training program. TOPS' carding policy is that if you appear to be 40 years or younger, you will be carded. They use a transaction scan device to check the IDs. Those scan devices will 99% of the time kick out fake IDs. They also kick out expired driver's licenses too. I actually found that out at a sheet store one time. I said, I represent you guys. And they said, too bad, your license is expired. In addition to the employee training, TOPS Markets has security cameras throughout the store, and they will cover all the areas where there will be beer and or wine. This is going to be a well-lit, safe, secure place where people can come in, purchase food to go, buy a 6-pack of beer or a bottle of wine to take home. That is the business model of the grocery store, liquor licenses, and convenience stores for that matter. TOPS is a responsible owner. It's making a significant investment in the community here. They're a well-respected employer and a well-respected community member. And for those reasons, we ask that you pass a resolution permitting the transfer of the license into the city of Erie. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Just curious, where is the liquor license transferring from?
Mill Creek Township, I believe, Fun Eats and Drinks.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Welcome to the city.
Thank you.
We're happy to have your business.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
Second public hearing is amending Articles 2... What?
Thank you.
Amending Articles 2, 3, and 6 of the City of Erie zoning ordinance to incorporate language for short-term rentals that would define short-term rentals, allow the operation of short-term rentals in certain zoning districts, and establish rules and regulations regarding the operation of short-term rentals in the City of Erie. Anyone offering testimony needs to raise their hand and take it up.
If you would like to offer testimony, if you could stand and raise your right hand so that our court reporter can swear you in.
Everyone.
So anyone that intends to, like
For
right
or
now,
against.
so that we only have to swear you all, we could swear you all in at once.
Only 2 people are
Yep.
speaking?
If you're not sworn in, you
There
won't
you
be
go.
able to give testimony.
Anyone else? All right.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, please do say I do.
I do.
And I'll ask that you please, when you come to the microphone, state your name as well.
Good morning. My name's Karen Sullivan. It's Sullivan. I want to thank you for all of your hard work on the short-term issue. I know it's taken a long time and a lot of work from all of you. But this morning you heard from Father Jerry how important zoning is to all of the City of Erie. And I just, to keep our neighborhoods intact. And I wanted to encourage you regarding this issue to keep R1 zone neighborhoods exempt from short-term rentals. I ask that the neighborhoods that you do permit them to be in, that you limit the number of short-term rentals. And as you continue to work on the ordinance, within your verbiage of the ordinance, you say, allow the operation of short-term rentals in certain zoning districts and establish rules and regulations regarding the operation of short-term rentals. I would encourage you that within these rules and regulations, you also define how you're going to control and enforce them. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Theodore Ely. I live at 4524 Cherry Street, Erie, Pennsylvania, and I'm here to talk about the short-term rental provisions that I've just read. I only had a few days to prepare here. I don't have many comments to make. I do want to express my condolences to Mr. Witherspoon, who I've known for a number of years, a fine, respected member of the community whose wife has passed away. I actually jotted these things down on an envelope. I think I read someplace that Lincoln, when he did the Gettysburg Address, he jotted down on the back of an envelope. I hope I have the same luck. But anyways, I too echoed the priest, Father Jerry, I guess it is, his comments about zoning. Too much is going on where areas of the city that have been so one-family neighborhoods are carved up by various landlords and made into multifamily dwellings with short-term rentals and even some with long-term rentals. And you can see the effect that this has on a neighborhood. I don't have to tell you, Father Jerry told you, and it's happening there. Could happen wherever these short-term rentals could be. Mill Creek has enacted an ordinance, so has Summit, so has Harbor Creek. All of these have limited or in Harbor Creek, for instance, banished short-term rentals from their neighborhoods. Okay. You may ask yourself, why are they going to do that? Why should we be less restrictive? I believe that short-term rentals are a problem in our city for a number of reasons, and I'm not as eloquent as Father Jerry in enumerating them. But the basic thing is that when you have a problem, what you have to do is limit the amount of the problem as best you can. You can't extinguish short-term rentals from every section of the city. However, putting them in every section of the city, every code, is not the answer. Number two, I note a few things in the ordinance which we brought up before. One is that this isn't an ordinance to permit mom and pop from renting out Junior's bedroom. This allows people who are corporations or firms, not even people who live on those premises, to rent out their property. I believe this is a fatal flaw in this ordinance because as you read the news, the biggest problem with rental properties like these short-term rentals is that you don't have them owner-occupied and that people occupy the same house. And we've had that problem in our neighborhood. We're working on getting rid of these short-term rentals because they are a problem, not a solution. If you want to have them, they should be in mixed-use neighborhoods like the other civic entities such as Mill Creek and Summit Township have done. There's no provision in here for inspecting these premises prior to giving them a license. So anybody who wants to have an Airbnb, if I want to have an Airbnb, I only have to pass a minimal test. I believe that there should be a rule providing for inspection at the owner's, the applicant's burden to keep from having people who don't have adequate lighting or safety measures. I'm sorry, I've overstayed my time. But in any event, I suppose I could go on forever here.
Theodore, we don't have a time limit on this the same way Citizens to be Heard does.
Okay, all right. I didn't want to drone on. In any event, I think also that that there should be, and I wonder why you would want to put these STRs in neighborhoods which are solely and traditionally R1 neighborhoods. We could end up just like Father Jerry's neighborhood. I don't want that. And I don't want it for Father Jerry's neighborhood either. There's a lot of minority neighborhoods which are good, solid neighborhoods in this city. Putting STRs is a problem. And if you don't think there's problems, you haven't been reading the newspapers with various things. In any event, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, I'd like to specify something, just as a little bit of in regards to Some of the stuff that is missing, as stated, is covered in other ordinances and left out of this particular one as a matter of redundancy. If you look at this one and you find it to be incomplete, which let me also state, there's a copy of it in the back corner for anyone that would like to read it. A lot of the missing pieces, as far as what the registration looks like, what the fees are that are associated with it, are covered in ordinances 330 and 404 of our city code. So some of these spots that we are lacking on, by keeping them out of zoning, for example, fees. The fees not being a part of zoning means that we don't have to have a hearing every time we update the fees for it. So there are little parts of this that we admit are lacking from this policy because they are covered in other parts of the policies of our city, particularly if you get a chance, and you can look it up on our city code website. 330 and 404 are the areas to look at that will address many of these concerns. Who else would like to speak?
Good morning. My name is Kathy Whipple, W-H-I-P-P-L-E. I live at 6072 Hummingbird Court, Erie, Pennsylvania. First of all, my condolences as well, Mr. Witherspoon, on your loss. Welcome to the city of Erie. That's the sign we see when we enter the city. Tell that to the husband whose wife was recovering from surgery at a local hospital and wanted a quiet home where his family and friends could come and visit during his wife's short recovery, not a cramped hotel room. Tell it to the family from Canada who traveled to Erie every home hockey game that their son played in while he was attending Mercyhurst College until he graduated. Tell it to the grieving family who lost a loved one and wanted to be in a home setting where they could share memories, love, and family time. Tell it to the family whose child just graduated from LECOM or one of the local colleges and universities. Those are just a few of the short stories that we have encountered while we have operated an Airbnb. Welcome to Erie, yes, just not in my neighborhood. We and my sisters and I thought that operating an Airbnb would be a great adventure, meeting people from around the country and around the world, and it actually turned out to be that way. We had fun. We love showcasing Erie, the small restaurants, local shops, Presque Isle, fishing, boating, and so many other things that the city has to offer. We saw no increase in traffic, no vandalism, no drug busts, no loud parties, no shootings. The police have never been called for any reason, and most importantly, the property value did not decline. Currently, and I can only speak for our home on Upland Drive, but to my knowledge, all of the other Airbnbs, VRBOs, short-term rentals in the city of Erie have not had any of the above-mentioned issues. What we have asked for the last 5.5 years, when this all began, were fair regulations for all concerned parties. Short-term rentals, Airbnbs, VRBOs, or however you want to refer to them, are beneficial for so many reasons. The income help pay for, excuse me, a child's education, whether it be college or a local private school, help pay a mortgage, assist the elderly parents stay in their home, or help pay medical care and prescription costs. The City of Erie and City Council have to look at the larger picture, not just a few disgruntled people that can't look beyond tomorrow. Times have changed, as we all have witnessed in our daily lives, and we as a community have to change as well. If we don't, we will be left behind. As someone who grew up in the city of Erie, graduated from Strong Vincent High School, and had a career with National Fuel, I want to see the city thrive, move ahead, and not be left behind. I would also like to commend the Erie Zoning Board and the Planning Commission for their due diligence over the last several years in putting something together that is fair and equitable to all concerned. And I ask City Council to carefully consider what is best for the entire city and not just a few people. I thank you for your time and appreciate what you've done.
Thanks, Ms. Whipple. Is there anyone else to offer statements?
I am Marge McConaughey, MC, capital C-O-N-A-H-Y. My husband and I are representative of the folks who rent Airbnbs. We've done this for the last 3 years. So to give you an idea who we are and the kind of people and why we come and want to rent an Airbnb, we've been lifelong residents of Erie. We've raised our family here. My husband has had a business here, and we've wanted to relocate to Florida, but we also wanted to keep our ties here. So our plan was, when we sold our home in Erie, to come back here for the summers, enjoy Erie, the things that happen here, spend money at your Erie and our favorite restaurants. And so that's what we did, and we have really appreciated the fact that we have had a lovely Airbnb to stay. That's one reason why we came here. But last September 28th, our home in Florida was destroyed by Hurricane Ian. We saw our car float away. We lost just about everything in our home. And then we were hit with a vacate order. And we looked at each other and asked, where are we going to go? We were physically stressed, mentally stressed, emotionally stressed, and we had no idea where we were going to go until we looked at each other and said, well, let's try the Airbnb where we have stayed during the summers. I can't tell you the relief we felt when we were told we could stay here. It has relieved us to such an extent to have a nice place to stay, visit with our friends, and we thought it was going to be short-term, but it has been long-term. But I thank you for listening to me. I hope I've given you some indication of why people wanted to have an Airbnb, why they want to go to one, and who we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak, offer testimony? I thought we were going to get one from every single perspective, and now we're going to double up, so everybody has to get their next person lined up. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Lucinda Maurer, M-A-U-R-E-R. Excuse me. I live at 5833 Mill Street, Erie, Pennsylvania. So here we are again. This is exhausting for me. But as exhausting as it is, it just shows how deeply I want this ordinance to be passed, because I'm very, very pro Airbnb, having operated one for almost 7.5 years now. We don't have to bring a menagerie of people in here anymore to prove our point. We have done that now for over 5 years, but I would like to reiterate a few things. The Zoning Board and City Planning Commission has worked diligently over the past several years and spent a lot of time drawing up this ordinance. I commend them for a fair and well-written ordinance that is in everyone's best interest. Their knowledge and expertise on this matter should be enough for City Council to approve the ordinance. Is that what not they are paid for, their expertise? So after all this time of debating this issue, what has changed in our city and neighborhoods that operate short-term rentals? Nothing. No crime due to short-term rentals, no disturbances from renters, no loud parties from renters, no parking issues from renters, and absolutely no change to the neighborhood. Now, this is for short-term rental, not long-term. That's a different story. Even the concerns of some council members have not happened. Airbnb has been operating since 2008. In those 15 years, Airbnb and in those 15 years since Airbnb began, large corporations have not come to Erie and purchased property to operate short-term rentals. Local LLCs have not done that either for corporate tenants. They buy up property for other reasons, but it is not for short-term rentals. In the city of Erie, that would not be cost-effective or profitable. But if they did, let me tell you, the properties would be far better maintained than a long-term rental. The people who own and operate short-term rentals are either local residents trying to make ends meet, stay in their homes, supplement their incomes, or people who have some ties to Erie. They certainly are not doing it to make a lot of money. I have a friend that rented her family home on Airbnb so she could hang on to that family home. During COVID, she did not feel comfortable renting that home, and that resulted in her having to sell it because she could not afford to maintain the home any longer. I'm a retired nurse, having worked at the VA Medical Center for 25 years. Managing the Airbnb supplemented my income and allowed me to give my daughter her dream wedding, put new siding on my house, and a new furnace, which was desperately needed. This is what short-term rental helps citizens do, not to make a lot of money, but to make money to help with everyday living expenses. You will no doubt hear the same arguments here today from both sides that you have heard now for over 5 years. I will tell you how beneficial it is to the community, which it is, how much tax revenue the city gains from short-term rentals, which it does, what great PR it is for the city, which it is, how affordable it is for families who want to vacation here in the summer, not to mention the comfort it gives them all. All these are true and can be proven. Our naysayers will only say what they think could happen, but have no evidence of any crime or disruption that has occurred in their neighborhoods. The people with the loudest voices against short-term rentals have admittedly stayed in them. What do we call them nowadays? NIMBYs? Not in my backyard. The truth of the matter is,
Be careful of
the
name calling in your
Airbnb on Upland
testimony.
Drive has brought nothing but joy and happiness to a lot of people without harming the neighborhood or anyone in it. The moment we hosted one of our first families in 2016 who were in Erie for a family funeral, I was convinced this was a good idea. We offered this family a comfortable place where they could all be together to grieve the loss of their loved one. You will also hear people fault me because I don't live in the city limits of Erie, and why should I even have a say in this matter? I have a say to them that I have a say because I care deeply about the city I grew up in, went to school in, raised my 6 children in, went to church in, and worked my whole life in. I attend St. Mark's Episcopal Church, and I'm on the outreach committee there. St. Mark's is not in the city limits either, but do you know where we do most of our outreach? In the city of Erie. We make food and distribute it to the homeless in the city. We volunteer at Emmaus Soup Kitchen and homeless shelters. We supply winter coats and food for the children in the Erie schools and buy clothes and shoes for kids who have been displaced in their homes for various reasons. My point is, you do not have to live within the city limits to care about what goes on in the city. We are all residents of Erie. ban on short-term rental, no matter where they are located, deprive people of their fundamental right to safely use their property as they see fit, and punish people for exercising their free speech rights to share their homes. This is why it is important to pass this ordinance so people can use their property as they see fit, and that it is done in a safe and legal way. As elected officials, you are here to represent all of the city of Erie and what is best for the city and its future. How can short-term rentals in any area of Erie be a bad thing when it has brought nothing but positive outcomes for the city, the people that stay in them, and the property owners, while not causing any disruptions to the neighbors or the neighborhood? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other testimony? Just a reminder to spell your name for the court reporter and to be respectful to all other parties.
Okay. My name's Larry Dunlap. It's D-U-N-L-A-P. I do have one extreme on the other end of the spectrum to discuss. My property is at 3829 McClelland Avenue. So I was directly across the street from the shooting that happened last year. That doesn't apply to every Airbnb. I'm not here to discourage tourism because I love it here. I think that Airbnbs are perfectly fine. I just think that sometimes, and in some cases, things are mismanaged and not looked at. Not every property owner is going to be as responsible as the next one. I've watched my neighborhood completely transform. None of us were ever afraid or concerned. I was never afraid to let my kids play outside or worried about what I was seeing across the street. I find myself looking at that property all the time, looking at who's staying there, what's going on, suspicious of everything. There have been parties there since that have had to have been broken up. And you know, you can't get that out of your head. You can't get police tape out of your head. The man who was killed was right at the end of my driveway when they loaded him into the ambulance. So there are some exceptions. It definitely needs to be regulated. There are some really good people I know that are just trying to make money and trying to do the right thing, and we definitely need the tourism here because it helps everyone. But things need to be managed better and looked at, and those people need to be held accountable that aren't managing things the way they need to be. That's really all I have to say.
Hey, Mr. Dunlap, did you get a chance to grab a copy of the ordinance back there to see how, see how it might be managed better and people would be held accountable?
I definitely will.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other testimony to be offered? Thank you. Do I have to say that 3 times or anything? Any other testimony to be offered? Any other testimony to be offered?
Guess that concludes the public hearings. Go back to ordinances for first reading. Council file number 16336, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $507,264 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof. Contribution is from ARP revenue reimbursement to be used for public buildings upgrades. Sponsored by Mr. Keys, seconded by Mr. Troop. Council File Ordinance 16336, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Ms. Faulkner, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Nelson. City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance 16336 by yeas 6, nays 0 on first reading. Council File Number 16337, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $750,000 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof. Contribution is from the ARP revenue reimbursement to be used for the incinerator at the wastewater treatment plant. Sponsored by Mr. Keys, seconded by Ms. Faulkner, the Council File Ordinance 16337, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Ms. Faulkner, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Nelson. City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance 16337 by yeas 6, nays 0 on first reading. Mr. President, this takes us
Hey,
to...
Can we get a couple more copies of that short-term rental ordinance? I see there's a couple people grabbing for. I think we went through the whole stack.
They could go into the clerk's office and they'll grab them.
All right. All right, thanks. Hey, miss, in the back there, that just grabbed the ordinance? No, no.
What? New business.
Old business?
You did old business. That was a public hearing.
Okay, I think so. Motion to move the balance of the agenda.
So moved.
Any separations?
Separation for purchase order number 4.
Separate new business number 1. Do you have any separations? Do you have any separations? Sherry separated number 1, and separated number 1. She separated number 4 for purchase orders, and I separated number 1 for new business. All right, that's it for separations. Lori, call for the vote.
Okay. In the balance, on number 6 in new business, we have a typo. Jim Newber's address is 3029 Liberty Street, and it's a 4-year term.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we separated number 1 in new business. Sponsored by Mr. Nelson, seconded by Ms. Flores. Resolved by the Council of, let's move the balance of the agenda.
Thank you.
Ms. Faulkner, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Nelson. Proper city officials are authorized and directed to designate McCain Avenue between Buffalo Road and East 20th Streets as Bishop Asa Jones Senior Way in remembrance of his contributions to the neighborhood as pastor of Apostolic Church of Jesus Christ. Discussion?
Just wanted to separate it to acknowledge we're gonna, he'd passed away recently, and that particular corner of the neighborhood was very notable. His family, his son have been working with our youth on football. They've invited us to a bunch of their practices. That's Rod. So we're going to be looking to do that in the next couple months and have a little remembrance. So just taking a minute to acknowledge that.
Any other discussion? Voting on the resolution, Ms. Faulkner, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Nelson. Yeas 6, nays 0. Number 4, under purchase orders, sponsored by Ms. Faulkner, seconded by Mr. Witherspoon, that the proper city officials are hereby authorized and directed to issue an agreement to Shot Spotter, Inc., Civic Center Drive, Suite 200, Fremont, California, for Shot Spotter gunshot detection hardware software subscription and license response service agreement for the Bureau of Police at a total cost of $910,000. Discussion?
My concern with this purchase order for ShotSpotter is a couple things. I understand that this will be funded by a recently received grant to the police department. However, that expenditure is concerning because after 2 years, how will it be paid for? I do not believe we've had an adequate discussion on that. Additional concerns is that for the area that this will be covered, the 6 square miles of Erie with the highest amount of gun violence, agreed that we need to do something around gun violence prevention. However, installing 120 to 150 microphones in the proposed area could have massive privacy concerns for the city. Lastly, in just my brief research, I found 3 concerning reports regarding ShotSpotter Inc. from the City of Chicago's Inspector General, the MacArthur Justice Center at Northwestern University, and a report by the Associated Press and Vice News. I think there's much more discussion that needs to be had on this, and I'm very concerned that our taxpayer dollars may be going to this without adequate discussion.
Any other comments from council?
Wanting to know the information and the data before we commit ourselves, because after the 2-year grant is fulfilled, it will be a tax burden to the taxpayers. So I sympathize with your concern. As a Lower East Sider who was raised on 5th and Wallace, I can definitely understand why you are alarmed with the privacy of our city residents being lacking in those areas. So I definitely share some concerns as well.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no problem with this resolution. Being in Erie since 1964, working in every aspect in every area of the city, Lower East Side, Center, Buffalo Road, every area that's considered minority population, high crime area. I've worked with individuals that are still incarcerated. I'm working with individuals that have served their time, know what's going on. If we can get our officers in an area where shots are fired, then they need to be there. It's not pointing out we're going to concentrate on the black community. I don't see it that way. I see it as protecting the black community. Shots fired. Tell that to the parents who lost children. Tell that to one of the parents that lost their infant sleeping in the bed. There's nothing wrong with police coming to the area when shots are fired. If shots are fired and nothing happens, then the citizen's going to be on the police department. Where are you? Why didn't you show up? How come it took you so long? Then they'll be down here at City Council chastising us. This is a grant. In my experience in writing grants, you don't turn down a grant. I'm not worried about what's going to happen 2 years from now. I'm worried about the individual who gets shot now, today, not 2 years from now. No one knows what's going to happen 2 years from now. Maybe the grant will be refunded. Maybe there's another grant. I'm talking about lives today. And if it's going to assist our police department, I'm darn sure going to vote for it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other discussion?
Yes, I'd like to weigh in on it. While definitely the intended usage of this software and hardware are good usages, the question is, this software has other capabilities, and who's going to manage those capabilities, and will it maintain its primary usage, I guess you could say. That's my concern. There's always great tools. It depends on how the tools are being used that decide whether they're ultimately for the greater good or not.
I take it, Chief, you'd like to speak? Please.
Thank you. You're right, this was a grant that the federal government offered specifically for the areas that are experiencing high gun crime. We qualified under that grant, and that's why we applied for this. We've done our due diligence. We've done the research. We've gone to Pittsburgh. We've observed their system down there. As far as the information of what's going to happen in 2 years, as Councilman Witherspoon hit on, this is a grant to pay for it now and use it, and also give us the opportunity to see if it is what we want, if it does work as we propose it will. This is to be, again, no expense to the city. We have 2 years to evaluate its use, and then at that point would be whether or not we determine if we'd like it beyond there. And again, we would look for, if we should decide that we want it, we'd look for more grants and opportunities such as that. I wholeheartedly stand behind it, but I also have 3 representatives of ShotSpotter that happen to be here today. And if council members would like to specifically address a question to them, I'm sure that they would answer your specific questions. But again, as far as this vote goes, this is solely for the 2-year grant period and nothing beyond. Thank you.
I'd like to defer to Susanna, as you had some strong questions on it. Would you like to have the spot shotter people available for your questions, or would you like to move on with any sort of votes and keep the discussion where it's at?
I'd love the opportunity to question.
Would you like to do that here, or would you like to do that outside after a vote? It would be.
After a vote would be preferred, and if it's possible now to make a motion to table it to a study session.
Do we have a second on that?
Do we have a time limit on having to use the grant before a specific deadline, I guess?
It's a 2-year grant. The money was appropriated or granted to us. Specifically, I have to talk to Abby about that, but I do believe that we only have 2 years to spend that money.
Do we have 2 weeks to vote on this?
Do we have 2 weeks to vote on it?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Okay. Do you second it then?
I'll second her motion to table.
Okay.
Chief, does the microphones, if I'm standing outside like on the corner talking to my buddies, do the microphones, I think I heard this question in the back, people are worried about it being able to pick up like conversations of people talking, things like that in the neighborhood. Is that going to happen?
So if we vote to table, we could have this discussion in 2 weeks. That would be over the next 2 weeks.
If you would, they have the expert here now. Why don't we, if we have a couple questions, why don't we extend them the privilege, and then we can make a ruling on it, if that's...
Are the experts only in town today, or are they available also possibly via Zoom or other ways that we could better prepare ourselves to have that kind of question and answer?
Basically, I'm not in any rush to vote if there's no rush to vote.
I only have one question. So, or you could relate. My question is, with this microphone technology, we know it's geared for shots fired, but it obviously can have other usages. And so with this technology, like picking up on keywords and activating, surveillance of regular citizens not engaged in gun violence.
My understanding is it's solely to detect the sound of a gunshot. But again, the experts are here. If you'd like, they could answer those quick questions while they're here.
I'm going to answer this. If you could answer this one question, that would be great.
Mr. President, members of the council, my name is Ron Teachman. My title is Director of Public Safety Solutions. I work for ShotSpotter Incorporated, headquartered at 39300 Civic Center Drive in Fremont, California. I'm joined also by my colleagues Jack Pontius and Paul John, if there are other questions you want to entertain now or in a subsequent forum. To the specific question about the microphones, they're placed on rooftops of buildings and on the top utility poles. The system is designed to detect and locate gunshots. Other things that are heard may be dumpsters when they're dropped, snow plows when they drop, backfire, fireworks. We do hear other noises. The system detects loud, impulsive acoustic events. We then detect it with a network of sensors, acoustic sensors, multilaterate, I'll say triangulate, the time difference when each sensor was activated, and that's how we precisely determine the location of the gunshots to dispatch the police to that location to save lives and gather evidence and to engage the community. We do not capture conversations. We have had an independent audit from the New York University School of Law Policing Project. They've come into our headquarters, they've kind of looked behind the curtain or under the hood, if you will, and they've issued a statement, and we can subsequently send this to the council, that there is very little, if any, concern about any kind of voice surveillance.
Thank you.
We're not hearing conversations. We're not interested in those conversations. I would also add, whatever is on that recording is 1 second before the gunshot, 1 second after. It's a snippet that's collected. That snippet comes to ShotSpotter. When it is determined to be gunfire, it is shared with the police. But anything else on our system is not available to the police. It goes to our Incident Review Center, and it's held there. What the police get is simply the snippet when it's determined to be gunshots.
Thank you.
Lastly, thank you. The San Francisco Privacy Commission, which I would consider to be the high watermark in our country, as well as the Oakland Privacy Commission, have both unanimously endorsed ShotSpotter after rigorous review.
Is there any other questions for them? This is still understanding that this may need to be tabled and further discussed. So, this does not necessarily have to be conclusive, but we would have to vote on those motions. Is there any other questions for them at this moment before we determine whether or not to table this?
One additional question. You mentioned like sharp sounds, right? So we here in the city of Erie love our fireworks. And so I'm wondering what happens when it's summertime, fireworks are going off. Has your research shown, or is there data analysis that you could point us to that might show of an increased police presence in neighborhoods that it's not necessarily gun violence, it's simply community members recreating?
Certainly, and we've had independent review from Edgeworth Analytics as to our efficacy on making that distinction. Let me just briefly...
Can you repeat who that is that did that?
Edgeworth Analytics.
Thank you.
And we can certainly send that information to you. That report has been commissioned. Let me just briefly, very briefly explain how we distinguish. When we hear a loud impulsive event, as I said earlier, we detect it, the system hears it, and we locate it through triangulation and multilateration. The real science is distinguishing gunfire from those other noises. How do we do that? Sophisticated algorithms are only used to filter out the acoustic events that are not gunfire. But before we dispatch the police, there's a human review. The human, highly trained to distinguish gunfire, particularly from fireworks, which is the most common false positive. Fireworks often have a whistle and a fizzle. They will also have a different acoustic characteristics, and the computer generates a waveform configuration or acoustic signature that we look at. But most tellingly, we look at the sensor participation. Again, we have a network, much like your cell phone network, where they're on buildings, rooftops, and on poles. We look at the sensor participation. Now, most of those other noises I mentioned, the fireworks particularly, the backfire, the dumpster, the jackhammers, the snowplows, they generate acoustically in an omnidirectional pattern. And so the sensors would participate in more of a circular fashion. But because gunfire is linear, you're more apt to see a directionality to the sensor participation, and that's another way we distinguish. We have been, again, independently audited with a false positive rate of the last few years of 0.5% and a performance rate of 97%. We contractually guarantee to the city to notify you of 90% of acoustic external noises that are gunshots. So we promise low and deliver high, and that's why we have a 99% retention rate among our customers.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity.
We have a motion and a second for table. Let's call for the vote on that.
Motion to table number 4 of purchase orders. Ms. Faulkner, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon.
Whoa. Slow down a little bit there.
We're voting on the motion to table.
No.
Ms. Flores, Ms. Faulkner, Mr. Troop,
No.
Mr. Witherspoon,
No.
Mr. Nelson.
It's 3-3.
Motion to table fails. Oh, it's tied, 3-3.
Okay.
Voting on the resolution. Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr.
Sorry,
Troop.
you skipped Ms. Faulkner.
I'm getting there. Okay. She's in a different position. Ms. Faulkner, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Nelson. Resolution passes yeas 6, nays 0.
All right, that takes us on to committee reports. We're going to volunteers go first, so we decide a direction. Anyone good? All right, let's go from that side.
My committee report is semi-short. I had a meeting with the EMTA committee. They are moving in the right direction. Ridership is going up, which is on their fixed routes, which is great considering the last few years of pandemic. So they're thinking things are getting back to regular. There's still no Sunday service, which is concerning for the workers in our community who have to get to and from work. Our city is not as accessible as we would hope it would be, given the 2023 year. We currently have office space that the EMTA is in the market to find tenants for, because I guess Mike Kelly's office moved to the county courthouse and there is availability, so that's something that's going on. We might get some new, people in the office space, but that's pretty much all I have to report.
Thank you. Mike? Councilman Keys?
I went to the airport meeting. The airport reported recently that they were going to get larger planes, which would increase the availability of flights out of Erie, which is a very, very good thing. That's my report.
Councilman Witherspoon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank my colleagues, administration, and just about every department, and all the citizens who offered condolences for the passing of my wife, Betty. And those condolences and visitations brought our family through. Thank you.
Mr. Councilman Troop.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report today.
Ms. Faulkner.
Thank you. From Erie Police Department, last week was a very busy week in terms of winter with 1,112 calls for service. Additionally, there were several arrests in the past week regarding the shootings that have happened in this past month. Additionally, the police department is down multiple employees. These are by natural causes of early retirements or folks leaving the department. There will likely be hiring opportunities for officers come April and June. And lastly, the first Police Athletic League ball was a success this last weekend. In terms of fire department, there were 146 calls for service, including 2 fires and 114 EMS calls. And I'll have additional updates from water and sewer after my first meetings with them in the coming month.
Thanks. For my committee, and with Mr. Brzezinski not being here today, I'll give an update from the department meeting. The lack of snow this year looks like it's saving the city $500,000. So he's Public Works liaison. He would have probably been reporting that, but that's always fun. All sorts of benefits there not being snow, except for the skiers. Upcoming and recent things that have passed, we had our vacancy and foreclosure registration pass back in January. That goes into effect today, but the contract for it is not quite in place yet. I'm expecting that to be on the next council meeting. It's been back and forth between our solicitor, our previous planning director, and the professional services company that we'll be going with. And this is we've done pretty big monthly ordinances for now 3 months in a row. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm hoping that we keep hitting it the same kind of pace for the rest of the year. In April, I'm speaking with really the nation's expert on land value tax about coming here and potentially speaking with our council and our school board and some community stakeholders with community economic development about how this could be beneficial to our community. Trying to schedule that sometime in April is what we're talking about right now. As we had a public hearing on short-term rentals today, there's a lot to be discussed at that. This is something that I expect to see within my lifetime, us coming back to. Communities that have been struggling with this because of property values getting too high and then having to come back and look at owner occupancy restrictions and such. In our community where property production is about half the value of what houses actually sell for, this might be something that if anything is beneficial, and we're seeing some substantial investment in including R1 neighborhoods to increase property values, especially in the very northeast corner of our community right now. I'm pretty excited about what I've been able to see in some of the communities. Community block grant, we had all of our meetings for that. The administration had their meetings. I got to go to a number of those 2 weeks ago. The City Council will be looking at that right now. Tentatively, we have March 9th at 5:30 as a meeting for that. We just have to finalize to make sure that the Community Economic Development and our different departments can be there for it. That concludes my report. Moving on to the solicitor's report. No report. And Renee, do you have a report from the administration?
Yes, I'll be quick. Since you mentioned CDBG, ESG, and home, wanted to make sure residents know the public meeting for that will take place this coming Monday, March 6th at 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. It'll be streamed live, but also those residents, those nonprofits, shelters, organizations applying for funding are free to come and offer public comment about the use of the funds. We will not, at that time, be able to release the allocation of dollars, but only the priorities. We'll be allocating the funding at a later date. Members of the administration have been meeting on several things in regard to priorities for grant funding. We've been meeting with department heads to discuss applications for 2024 for congressional appropriations. The process has just opened for that, so we have a couple of weeks to get our requests in, and also priorities for application for state grants. So it's going to be a very, very busy couple of weeks. We're also working on the expansion of the Love Your Block program for year 2. And we're working on the Infinite Erie Housing Delivery Team and the Homeless Delivery Team on strategies for those areas. Also working with the Bloomberg Harbor Data Project on our continued coaching in regard to our housing strategy. And just quickly, in regard to the Green Garden Bike Lane, there's been no communication because we haven't made a decision yet. We're still in the process of meeting and discussing alternatives. Thank you.
Do you know if anyone will be available for that meeting at 6:30 tonight? I looked at my calendar.
I didn't know there was a meeting tonight until she announced that, so I'll have to find out.
On that. All right, thank you. And with that, City Council meeting is adjourned.
City Council.